You're broken down and tired of living life on the merry-go-round, and you can't find a fighter, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out. Move mountains, we gon' walk it out and move mountains.
Hi everyone, I'm Ariana Brazier. I go by Ari. I'm a second-year English Literature PhD student at the University of Pittsburgh, and I'm also the third vice president of the National Council of Negro Women, the Rankin, Mon Valley, Pittsburgh section. So I'm over youth and young adult leadership. The National Council of Negro Women is a coalition comprised of 200 community-based sections in 32 states and 38 national organizational affiliates that works to enlighten and inspire more than 3 million women and men. Its mission is to lead, advocate for, and empower women of African descent, their families, and communities. NCNWi was founded in 1935 by Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, influential educator and activist. For more than 50 years, the iconic Dr. Dorothy Irene Height was president of NCNWi. Ms. Ingrid Saunders Jones was elected chair of NCNWi in 2012, ushering in a new era of progress and growth for the organization. NCNWi's mission is to lead, develop, and advocate for women of African descent, their families, and communities. Today, we are here with Amachi Pittsburgh as part of our NCNWi section's observance of National Mentorship Month. The mission of Amachi Pittsburgh is to empower young minds to overcome the challenges of parental incarceration and to reach their full potential through one-on-one mentoring, family strengthening and reunification support, and leadership development and youth organizing. We are nationally recognized and award-winning as the only organization in the Pittsburgh area with a distinct focus on children of prisoners' promise. Today we are with Anna Hollis. She is the executive director of Amachi Pittsburgh, a unique partnership of secular and faith-based organizations working together to support children and families of the incarcerated. Who knows what God has brought us through this child is the English translation of Amachi and forms a centerpiece of the organization's mission to empower young people to overcome the challenges of parental incarceration and reach their full potential. A native of Pittsburgh's Hill District and a graduate of Howard University, Anna has been a long-standing advocate for social change. She has forged strong working relationships with the executive, legislative, and judicial branches of state government, along with the county and local officials to advance Amachi's important mission. Anna is highly regarded for her work on behalf of children and families on the incarcerated and serves on several boards and statewide commissions. She is also the mother of 3, and she passionately believes that every child has inherent value despite family circumstances. It is her hope and expectation that caring adults will recognize, protect, and nurture the God-given potential and purpose of all children. We are also here today with an Amachi Pittsburgh mentor, Jose Diaz. So hi to both of you.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. I'm really excited to talk to you both.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, so Jose, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so again, thank you for having me. My name is Jose Diaz. I am originally from New York City. I grew up in Brooklyn. I've lived in Pittsburgh, it's been, 12 years, 13, maybe. I was one of those who came here for school, and so I got my bachelor's degree in social work from the University of Pittsburgh. I went on to grad school, got my master's in social work from the University of Pittsburgh with an emphasis in community organizing and social admin. And so my body of work for the past 10 years or so has really focused on communities, specifically low-income communities, communities of color. I had started out early on doing a lot of organizing work around the Hill, later on with the unions, specifically the Service Employees International Union, and then in Homewood. Currently, I work for the YMCA of Greater Pittsburgh as a program director. I oversee 2 programs there. One program is geared towards adults and individuals, adults and households that are in crisis. So crisis can be subjective from I need help paying my rent to I can't pay my utility bills to I need food, whatever that crisis is. And then the second program that I oversee is called Y Achievers, and it is geared towards, well, the focus is for young people, specifically 7th through 12th grade. Right now, this is our first year of the Achievers program, so we're actually focusing just on 7th grade. We have 3 pilot schools that we're working with right now to recruit students for this school year. The idea behind Achievers is taking kids from multicultural backgrounds and providing them with opportunities that enhance their exposure to career paths and opportunities that present themselves by exposing them to careers and people behind those careers that look like them. That was also critical. We actually have a hashtag called Success is Colorful. Hashtag Success is Colorful.
I like that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I actually have to give credit to my colleague and regional executive director at the YMCA, Marissa Williams. So if she's watching, she's probably not. But if you're watching, I owe that to her because she actually came up with that hashtag. It's a really great one. And so the Achievers program meets twice a month on Saturdays at the PNC YMCA downtown.
Okay.
And we have adults who volunteer their time. These are adult achievers, adult mentors that work with the youth. And they come from a number of sectors: banking, education, workforce development, and spend time with the kids and perform activities with the kids and also just share of themselves. One of the other components of the Achievers program is we do World of Work tours where we take the kids to local employment firms to see what a day in the life would be like there. That's the overview. And then of course I'm here, but I'm here today in a capacity as a mentor with Amachi Pittsburgh. So.
Wow, a lot of mentorship positions there, a lot of overlap. Can you, Anna, share more about Amachi Pittsburgh and all the great work that you and Amachi are doing?
Sure. Amachi Pittsburgh has been around since 2003. We were established by Pittsburgh Leadership Foundation and became an independent organization just several years ago. We started off by adopting the national Amachi mentoring model. It's very similar to Big Brothers Big Sisters, except we have a particular focus on kids of incarcerated parents and leveraging community resources through partnerships with faith and community-based organizations. And so we sort of consider that our low-hanging fruit. A good bit of people who volunteer do so because of their religious affiliation or through their religious affiliation, so we try and capitalize on that. And so we started off with one-on-one mentoring for kids from ages 4 through 18. And then we quickly realized that you can't serve kids in isolation. So, you know, these kids, you can take them out for an hour a week and, you know, have a good time, but then they go back home to some pretty challenging circumstances. And so we sort of organically evolved to incorporate family strengthening programming. And then later my favorite program is called Amachi Ambassadors. And this is when our kids get to high school, we take them through a leadership development and advocacy curriculum so that they emerge as champions of their own cause. It's about them taking responsibility and for the changes they want to see in their community.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting. I can
is.
see why it's your favorite.
Yeah, it is. It is because we see them, you know, when they start off, they're very shy. It involves a lot of public speaking.
Right.
And, you know, people are typically pretty shy about that, especially young people. And once they get through this training, you know, we see them, we take them with us whenever we have, you know, participate in public hearings in Harrisburg or locally. They have facilitated conferences, workshops at conferences locally and nationally. They've traveled to other states and presented on their experiences. So what's really important is to, you know, help them recognize that they have a voice and that their voice matters. It's important, and nobody can tell their story like they can. And so that's what that program is about. And over the past several years, they have been focused on the school to prison pipeline and making some changes in that realm. So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. That's a complex issue that I know a lot of organizations run into, but don't always spend enough time on is what happens when the children go home, right? Or when they leave your care.
Yeah, sure.
How do you make your 2 hours with them a week extend into the 40, 50 hours they spend at home?
That's right.
So I'm really excited to hear that there are models for addressing those
Absolutely.
those issues. Like, that's awesome.
And what's really wonderful is so many of most of our families are headed by, you know, a single mom. Dad is usually incarcerated in most cases in our network. But we hear over and over again from our moms that the mentors provide so much value to them and support to them. And I remember getting a call from one of our parents, and she says, "I just want to thank you for what you're doing and for matching us up with, you know, her kid's mentor." And she says, I've actually become a better parent because of what he's doing for my kids." So, you know, they have a chance to, and I'm sure this is your experience, you get a chance to communicate with mom or dad or grandma, other members of the family, and encourage each other, and we're all in it together.
That's how it should be. Which brings me to like a very basic question, but like, how do you conceptualize, like both of you, what a mentor is? Like, how do you think of a mentor? And then more specifically, like, what sets Amachi mentors apart?
You know, it's funny because I was actually thinking about that on my drive over here. Someone that I know reached out to me recently about a particular issue. It doesn't matter what the issue was, and I'd given some feedback, and I'd also put them in touch with somebody else and suggested that the two of them follow up together to just meet and have some coffee and just get to know one another, because I thought that the one person could bring value to the other person who had the initial question. And so she replies back and she said something about, "Thank you both for being such huge mentors." And I remember I was thinking about that on my drive over here and thinking about, you know, that word, and I think she meant it, you know, genuinely and sincerely when she referred to us as mentors, but that word is so much deeper than I think sometimes we use it as. It's a responsibility that you have to someone else, whether it's, you know, a child or another adult. When someone comes to you and says, "Will you be my mentor?" or, you know, "I'd like to explore an opportunity to mentor you if you're okay with that." I mean, you're taking on an opportunity, really responsibility to them, to pour into them the things that they may need for themselves to grow. And, you know, I think about my own experiences growing up and how I did not have formal mentors, not folks that I would come to and say, "Hey, can we set aside some time regularly to meet?" But just folks who informally influenced me and gave me advice and suggestions and nurturing above all else to get on the path that I'm on. And so that the formality of that word mentor, I think, says, okay, this is an agreed upon union here where, you know, we can work towards the same goal together. And especially in the lives of young people, it's so important just because of the absence of role models in some young people's lives. And so to me, when you're talking about conceptualizing mentorship, it is about nurturing. It's about giving them what they need, whether it's skills-based, just support, whatever that support looks like, because it is important. It is lacking in terms of what resources, well, not what resources, but the access to those resources,
right.
You know? And that's the other thing that I think a lot of times we struggle against, especially if you're Black or brown, when you're thinking about access to those resources and how to connect to those resources. And a mentor can be someone that can say, look, this is what you need to do, right? This is how you can go about accessing those resources. So. That was a very long way of answering your question.
No, I think it's great. When responsibility, I think keywords is what stands out when we think of, when you're conceptualizing such abstract, sometimes almost inaccessible, like you said, relationships. I think responsibility brings it closer to home. It makes it more personal, and it's more of an impetus for us to be responsible for those relationships and nurturing them. How would you describe or define a mentor?
Yeah, I think mentorship, I wanted to just add to what Jose said. I think mentorship is mutually beneficial. You know, I think it's not just for the child. I think it's also for the benefit of the mentor. And I think we all have a responsibility to each other. I think we have a responsibility for our communities, and I think making a commitment to mentor a child is an adult's way of fulfilling their obligation and responsibility to community, but also to enrich and better themselves. So I just sort of see it as
Yeah, no, I agree.
in addition to what Jose mentioned, just beyond that, a little extra special just for all parties involved.
Yeah, I can completely believe that. I like the way you phrased it as well. So my research is largely on children, particularly low-income Black children, and I look at them as the heart of a community. So if everyone has a responsibility to elevate that community, why not start with the child or the children? When you put that potential in action, when you help build that up, you are building the community. You're not just building, you're sustaining it too.
Right.
So that is a very important work and a very important responsibility that I'm sure has challenges. So what are some challenges that you both have experienced as mentors or even mentees?
Yeah. Well, I have many I could mention today, but I think with our population, with our families, one of the biggest challenges is for a mentor that I've heard over the years is just dealing with the transiency that many of the families experience, and just so many challenges, particularly when the families are involved, have involvement in the criminal justice system, or a parent that's absent. It's huge. There's so many layers of challenges on a routine basis, and mentoring in that family's home is important, but it may not be the highest priority. When you're confronted with financial challenges and other issues associated with parental incarceration, it's easy to get out of your routine. So our expectation of our mentors is to meet weekly with the mentee.
That is a commitment.
Yeah, it's a commitment, and we ask for a minimum 1-year commitment. And so the mentor is geared up, and we make sure they're well trained and prepared for this. And then oftentimes there's a break in the consistency of their visits, and that can be very discouraging. And for all of us, once you get off of your routine, it's sort of difficult to pick back up again. And so I know that that's been a real challenge, and for mentors not always understanding, what's happening in the home and that kind of thing. So this is not for the faint of heart. It takes a really committed person to be patient and understand that, and to expect that you're going to have these sort of breakdowns in communication and visitation from time to time, but to keep at it, be patient, keep at it. And we're there always to intervene and to help reconnect. And you just have to, give families sometimes space and time to resolve. And where you can be a help in working through some of those challenges, we do encourage that. But I think that's one of the biggest challenges. Yeah.
I can believe that. It's good that they have a support system behind them as
for
mentors.
Sure.
The only thing I'd add to that, actually really it's not an add-on, it's more of a piggyback to what Anna was saying about, I think it was consistency, and sometimes there's a breakdown in communication. And I've experienced that even just in the past, I think 4 months or so, where there was, maybe longer than that, there was a period of time where just for a number of reasons, life happens. And I know I was running up against some deadlines at work, and I tend to get very tunnel vision at times, and I didn't even realize how much time, and it was more so on my part than my mentee's part, but I had seen, I didn't even realize how much time had lapsed between communicating with him. And funny enough, he was the one that reached out to me and was like, Jose, like, hey, and I was like, oh my God, I haven't forgotten about you, I swear. But it was good. I think it also spoke to, when he did that, and he's done it a few times, and I'm like, buddy, I'm so sorry. But I think it's also spoken to how well we've gotten along, that he's like, hey, what's going on, right? Yeah. He's like, hey, what's going on? And that stuff has been really, really important, I think, in our relationship. because he also has a parent who is incarcerated, and I think there are stories that he's confided in me that, this is clearly what he's carrying with him every day. And to be able to unpack that, the times that we're together is super, I think, important for him. And for me, I think it helps me, it affirms for me the value of this relationship. So when I let that time lapse and he's like, hey, are you okay? I'm like, oh, yes, we are. What are you doing Saturday? I'll take you out. And that's actually what's happened before.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's the obstacle that I've come across thus far. But again, relationship building is so critical to that too.
Wow. Well, we have a call, actually.
Oh.
Caller, would you like to speak?
Yes, this is James from East Liberty.
Hi, James.
Hi, James.
Hi, James.
Hi. And I want to say that I really enjoy the shows that NCNW have on every month. But something about Amachi, I was wondering, mentoring, does that include helping the kids academically?
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you for your question.
Yeah, we do. When we enroll children in our program, we do a full assessment of that child's needs and interests. And if academics is something, is an area where that kid needs support, then we'll absolutely ensure that we get the child paired up with the mentor that can support that need.
And also, is your organization involved with churches at all in the area?
Yeah, we partner with churches, and we just got a new synagogue as a partner.
Cool.
We're excited for the first time about that. So yeah, we do, absolutely. What area are you in? East Liberty, yeah. Yeah, we do. So you could check our website, which is amachipgh.org. Amachi is AMACHI, pgh.org, and we have a list of partners. And feel free to reach out to our office as well. If you know a church or other community group that could be a partner of Amachi, please make a recommendation. We'd be happy to reach out.
Okay, thank you both.
Thank you. We have another call. Carla, would you like to speak?
Hello,
Hi.
Miss Hollis. This is Sister Finley calling you. I
Hello.
don't know if you remember me.
Yes.
My grandson was in your program,
Uh-huh.
Trayvon Finley,
Okay.
and he had a mentor that he fell in love with,
Oh.
and his mentor left and moved to New York. So he's having problems, and I was wondering if you still would take him back into the program.
100%. Of course. Yes.
He's 15 now.
Yes. Yeah, he's not too old.
He's 15, and his dad was incarcerated, but he's out now.
Okay.
But now Trayvon is incarcerated.
Trayvon is?
He's a George Jr.,
Okay. Uh-huh.
and he seems to be doing very well.
Uh-huh.
Very well, but I'm thinking about when he comes home.
Yeah, just reach out to us, and we'll do everything we can to get him the support he needs.
Okay. Are you still with Mount Airy?
Yes, Mount Airy is still a partner.
Okay. Thank you very
Uh-huh.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Bye-bye.
So we actually have two flyers from Amachi. The first one is kind of some of the programs it looks like. You have one-on-one mentoring, family strengthening, and reunification support in Amachi ambassadors. Can you explain what some of the one-on-one mentoring looks like in action? I know you said they meet every week, but like, what do we do? Do you go to into the homes? Do you take them out?
Oh, you're looking at me, so I guess I should answer that. Yeah. So, I mean, it's pretty subjective. It's my mentee and I, we usually go out. I've had some ideas of places to go to. I encourage him to try to come up with some stuff. He's pretty chill about things, so I'll say, hey, do you have any ideas? And he's like, nope. I'm like, well, that's not helpful. Because then I have to come up with stuff. But it could be something as simple as, I mean, our first outing together was really a get to know one another thing. And so I asked him what one of his favorite places to eat at was, and he said Denny's on McKnight Road. And we went out to Denny's. Our first outing, we had dinner together for about 3 hours.
Wow.
We sat there from like 7 p.m. till about 10 p.m. on a Friday night and just sat there. I'd never been to Denny's either, so it was cool. It was my first time. I told him, order whatever you'd like within reason, because budgets, right? But he ordered, and we just sat and talked. It was a great conversation. It was also like a nice icebreaker. We went to the movies. We've gone to the movies a few times. But you know what? On the occasion where we're not hanging out, it could be it could be a text message, conversation where we're just texting, and he's a big texter, so we'll text back and forth and say, and how's your week been? How's school? How are things going? He was going through something recently, based on what I had seen, and what he had described to me, and so I'd asked him about that, and we just had this whole conversation via text message. So I mean, the mentoring can look. There's no cookie cutter model for mentoring. Really, though, I think, well, for me anyway, I don't want to speak for other mentors, but I think for me it was just, throwing stuff on the wall and see what stuck. Like, okay, we'll try this. That doesn't work, we'll try something else.
Which can be exciting in its own right,
It's
right?
also
Like
scary.
the exploration period.
But, we did that, and we've done that. In my case, knowing my mentee as I have, he's a pretty simple kid. Simple as in, he enjoys kid things, the things that his age bracket enjoys, and so I don't have to do all this stuff. I like to try to show him some stuff and introduce him to some, some other. We went to P.F. Chang, which he had never been to, and I was going to take him to someplace like Thai, because I love Thai food, but he wasn't quite ready for that. So I was like, all right, we'll just start with P.F. Chang, because you've never been here, and it's still Asian food. And he had a great time, but I was like, do you want to try something else? But he's just, he's that kid where he's just like, burgers and fries are my thing. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
So again, no cookie cutter model. Everyone is different, and I think part of the mentoring experience is recognizing those differences and then introducing opportunities that fit what that child is interested in.
Right. So we have another flyer, or actually it's statistics. And so I was wondering if, Anna, you could speak on why mentorship in the demographic you work with is especially critical.
Yeah, well, I think mentorship is actually important for everyone. I mean, for the same reasons that you and I have needed a mentor, and any successful person on planet Earth has been mentored, whether formally or informally. Everybody needs guidance and support. Everybody needs a trusted ear. Everyone needs an open door, really, access to opportunities. And in the case of our young people, having the absence of that parent, I mean, it's like a loss. They're grieving the loss of that parent, along with the shame and embarrassment of, having a parent behind bars. You need the extra support. So I think, for our kids, what we've learned from the kids is that they need to see themselves separate and apart from the decision that their parents made. They need to see themselves as individuals. They need to see that success is possible, and they need to realize and accept that they don't have to follow the same pattern. There are so many kids who fear the same thing will happen to me. And so we help them understand and build their sense of awareness about the power they have over their own lives, that their own decision making determines their future, it doesn't just happen to you. And it was interesting the first time I heard kids, we've had focus groups over the years, and it was interesting the first time I heard kids really expressing the fear that the same thing would happen to them, that they would follow their parents' footsteps behind bars. And so, we are very intentional about the messaging that we share with our young people, and making sure that they realize that, that they chart their own course.
Right.
And that's why that ambassadors program is so important, because it's that concept in action. It's what do you want to see changed, And so let's do something to change, you know, to make that change happen. And then we're actually doing it. And they have been instrumental in, you know, a public awareness, a campaign we call Victims No More. And that campaign was designed to educate policymakers, decision makers, particularly legislators, about what this experience is like from a kid's view, because, you know, we're all very aware and we have lots of conversations about crime and, you know, public safety and, you know, even incarcerated individuals and reentry. But people forget that kids are involved. You very rarely hear about kids of incarcerated parents. And so, you know, the kids taking on that leadership role in educating, becoming the expert, right? And educating decision makers about what that experience feels like for them, about the impediments that they experience along the way and what they feel they need to be successful and to make different choices. You know, I say that they're responsible for legislation that was introduced in the Pennsylvania legislature last year and was passed in October. We've worked very closely with the Department of Corrections, Secretary Wetzel, and, you know, bipartisan, this bipartisan bill was introduced and passed, and it establishes a trust fund. It's called the First Chance Trust Fund. That will provide scholarships and programming for kids who are vulnerable to the criminal justice system. And I mean, I give credit to young people who were courageous enough to,
Congratulations.
you know, to tell their stories publicly and you know, many different, before many different audiences. So.
Wow, that's really exciting work.
Yeah, it is amazing. And so I think, you know, just them seeing something like that come to pass and taking ownership of it,
I'm all about like these terms and these definitions and these experiences in action. So I was actually going to ask about like measurable outcomes, like how you measure these, and I see like these are huge achievements that you all are making. These are huge strides.
Yeah, we survey, you know, our kids, our parents before they're enrolled or at the time of enrollment, and then we do, you know, annual follow-up, 6 months and annual, well, really every 6 months. Not that everybody responds every 6 months, but we try. But we do ask about how well they're faring in school, you know, socially, personally, spiritually, and then we want to see what kind of progress is happening over time. And we do see an increase in confidence.
I believe
where they view themselves differently. They feel better about who they are. They feel better about their future. Therefore, they make better decisions. They feel empowered and equipped to solve problems in a healthy and effective manner, and not just through, you know, sort of a knee-jerk response to challenges that they're facing. So I think that's really important, even thinking about how they're going to solve problems. Like, you know, Jose said, his mentee reaching out to him and having that conversation about text instead of talking to one of his friends, right? I mean, I think that's a huge...
those are signs of growth and maturity. When you can make the decision to talk things out with someone you know, you trust, may or may not have the answers. I think that says a lot about the type of growth that your mentees must be truly experiencing.
And then of course,
no, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, I think, you know, we forget sometimes how resilient kids are. You know, they've been through things, survived things that sometimes we as adults
will never.
Right, you know, and I am not the product of a parent of incarceration, so I don't know what that's like. But to hear him tell me his feelings and his anxiety of, you know, even going to his father's court hearing because he didn't want to see his father, you know, and spending time talking over that. Again, I mean, just the resilience of children to survive insurmountable odds. And I think, you know,
incredible.
And that's why mentorship is so important, to ensure that they know that they are not carrying this load alone, right? You know. So.
That's that's awesome, actually. So some of the photos that I received from Amachi, one of them, hopefully coming up, the mentors look as excited as the mentees.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what's
I
been
told
like
you.
the most rewarding part of being a mentor? Or even from like an executive position, what's been so rewarding?
Yeah, the most rewarding part for me was about 10 years in, maybe about year 11 or 12 of the organization. We had the University of Pittsburgh, who we partner with for our program evaluation. And they looked at kids who had been in our mentoring program for several years and looked at how many became involved either in the juvenile or adult, after age 18, right. Just so we did a retrospective look. How many became involved in a criminal justice system. And we had a 92% success rate.
Wow.
So only 8% of kids became involved in the criminal justice system, or they were adults by then. But I think that, coming into this work and hearing the statistics that were disseminated through the Department of Justice, that, the claim was that more than half of these kids were going to follow their parents' footsteps. And, I just took exception with that. It just made no sense to me that we would, accept that and prepare for that.
Right.
I thought if that's true, then we should be doing everything we can to produce a different outcome.
Right.
And so seeing that 92% success rate for me,
that's a huge number.
Yeah, was the best thing. I think the best part of being involved in this, and always seeing the kids, seeing the kids, in front of a microphone with 10 to 15 legislators and telling their stories without flinching and very confident, taking questions at the end, not knowing what those questions are going to be and being able to respond effectively. That makes my day. That gets me up in the morning.
Oh, we have a caller. Caller, would you like to speak and share?
Yes, good evening. My name is Sandy, and I'm calling from the Hill District. How are you all this evening?
Great.
Good. Well, I always enjoy the programs that you bring, National Council of Negro Women. My call is concerning, I really think it's important that what Anna said about showing the children they don't have to go down the same path their parents went down, and how to separate and still love their parents. I didn't hear the beginning of the program. The only children that can participate in your mentorship program are children who have a parent or parents in prison or incarcerated.
Yeah, the families who have had involvement with the criminal justice system, that's our niche. And, that's what we specialize in. If there are, oftentimes in the same home, there are siblings whose parents are not incarcerated, and we don't ignore those children. We will provide services to those children as well. But if there are families who, have not had this experience and are interested in mentoring and support, we are partnered with the Mentoring Partnership of Southwestern Pennsylvania and a host of other agencies that do provide mentoring for those families, and we're always happy to make a referral.
Wonderful. Okay, because I was wondering if you paired with other mentorship programs, because the success rate that you just described of keeping children from the same path, I think is phenomenal.
Thank you.
I really do. A lot of times I meet children whose parents may not be incarcerated, but they have certain habits that the children really shouldn't follow.
Yeah.
And they end up following them, thinking it was good enough for my parents, it's good enough for me, or that's your only option.
Right.
So it sounds like by you mentoring with other groups that you're probably sharing whatever secret or whatever skills that you all have that have that high rate of keeping children from going down that same path, that you're probably sharing it with the other mentor groups. So I just applaud what Amachi is doing, and all three of you actually, but the program of Amachi and your mentor, and you, Anna, and all three of you, and of course, Ariana.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Get online and fill out a mentor application.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
You too.
Thank you.
What about you, Jose? Would you like to share your most rewarding?
Yeah, I think for me, so I'm a big proponent of learning, and just you mentioned earlier about the dual relationship between a mentor and mentee and how mentors learn from their mentees as well. And even in my professional roles, I've had opportunity to take on interns into my office or guest lecture in a classroom. And one of the things that I really enjoy is when not only are they taking in what I'm saying to them, but I've also learned some things from them as well, from students and from interns. And I think that's one of the best things about mentoring is what I've learned from my mentee. You know, he's helped me to experience a different age group that I have forgotten what that group is like because I'm not that in that group anymore. But also just even his own insights into the world. I think a lot of times we neglect, in the same way that we talk about the resiliency of children, you know, we also forget that they bring value and opinion and thought and emotion to tables. A lot of times when we're talking about conversations, where we're having conversations about communities or community development or communities in transition, you go to these community meetings and there are adults in the room, there are, you know, professionals who have X number of degrees behind them, and we always leave out the youth voice.
Right.
We always leave out the youth voice who says, well, you know, what about this? Did you consider this? Because for some reason as adults, we consider them to be invalid. We've invalidated them for some reason, when in fact they have such power and they have such influence and such insights of their own. And so for me, I've learned just a number of things from my mentee, you know, and hanging out with him and hearing his perspectives on things. And I think it's helpful because as you get older, I mean, there could be a tendency to get stuck in your ways.
Yes.
And so it's good to have fresh perspective, fresh pair of eyes that can help you navigate the world yourself. And so I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, my research is, I talk about what it means to centralize like youth voice and use their understanding, their own expressions and beliefs about their experiences and what's going on around them. We often don't realize, or we refuse to acknowledge even, that children have a certain sense of knowledge about what's going on around them, economically, politically, culturally, racially. They have an understanding, it's just expressed often very differently. And when we take in those expressions, we can use them, right, for like positive change, not only in the community, but in our personal lives. But we have to be open to saying, you know what, this is knowledge and it's valuable knowledge.
Yeah. We produced a report called What We Learned from the Children.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's on our website.
I'm going to look it up.
For that very reason, because, you know, adults sit around the table and talk about young people all the time.
Without them ever here. Even right now. Like,
instead of talking to them. And so that's a very interesting report. But also the Pittsburgh Foundation convened groups of youth, I think over the past year, and produced a report as well, which is on the Pittsburgh Foundation website. It's their Voices initiative, but it's a very interesting window into
that's really
a
cool.
child's world and the challenges that young people face, what they have to contend with, you know, on a daily basis, you know, not feeling safe in their own homes, in their communities, and schools, not even feeling safe. It's quite a challenge. So that's an interesting report to read, but, you know, what's also wonderful, the most touching part for me was reading about their hopes and dreams. I say hearing because I sat in on one of the focus groups too, but just reading that part about their hopes and dreams, and it's like that's when
oh my
you
gosh, I bet that was so overwhelming.
That innocence, you know, coming through.
Anything is possible.
Yes. Oh, and one young man said, he was very specific about what he wanted to become, and he wanted 4 children. You know,
sounds like my kind of kid.
Yeah.
You gotta lay it
out.
Write
a wife and 4 kids, and you know, and a job. And I just thought, oh,
it's awesome.
You know, it's just a pure, genuine, you know, desire to be healthy and whole, and successful in life and normal.
Right.
So, yeah.
We have another caller.
Oh. Caller.
Caller, would you like to share?
Yes, this is Deneen Hood. Hi, Ari. Okay.
Hi. Hi,
You know
Miss
what? I'm
Deneen.
listening to the program, and my question I have is, I know foster parents that take in some are emergency care, some do it, and they keep the kids for a while, and many of the kids have parents that are incarcerated. Do you partner with any organizations that are foster parents? Because I'm thinking, especially with a couple parents, if they would have known about this program with their foster children,
Yes.
I think it would have been so good and maybe changed, because now they are repeating that cycle. Most of them, not all of them, but it seems like the majority of them are repeating that cycle, and they're, in jail now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we do. We disseminate information about our programs to the courts and county agencies, and I know Second Chance. We do get referrals from Second Chance. That's kinship care. But if you please take our information, spread the word about our organization. We absolutely will enroll children who are in foster care. If that foster parent is willing to get the child enrolled, we'll provide those services. But yeah, check us out online, get on our website, share the information. If there are agencies that you'd like us to present to, we'd be happy to do that as well.
Okay, thank you. I definitely will. Like I said, I just wish a few years ago I would have known about your program.
Yeah.
But that's okay. It's never too late.
Yeah,
Never too late.
it's a struggle because we're a small operation, and trying to get the word out very broadly about what we do, it's always a challenge. I mean, we don't really have the capacity to be everywhere at the same time, but we do what we can to get the word out. And thank you for what you're doing, because this helps. This is how
thank you for coming
this
and
is how
podcast.
we spread the word through each other. So that's good.
Okay, thank you.
What you said stuck out to me about being whole, the children's desire. I was looking at a Humans of New York post. I share it every time it shows up on my Facebook feed. It's a little boy, and they said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he said, a big boy.
Oh.
And moments like that really stand out to me,
Yeah.
because I was actually talking about that recently this week. Like, I have all these big dreams and plans, but I never take time to think about, like, what do me as a person, what do I want to look like and be like when I grow up? I was thinking about my career aspirations and all of these different things I want to see happen around me, but not always like what I want to see happen like to me and within me. And it's mentors who are the ones who tell me, like, whoa, slow down. What are you going to do for you in the meantime? So do you have anybody, either one of you, both of you, pouring into you? Like, do you have mentors that have stood out or continue to stand out?
Yeah. Do you want to go?
Yeah, if I may. So I mentioned earlier that I've never had a formal mentor. I think, these are, the folks in my life are people that I have learned from, I don't know if they realize it. They have so much knowledge and wealth of experience and history that, I have gleaned. People like Carl Redwood, who we mentioned before the broadcast. Terry Baltimore, another phenomenal woman, leader in the Hill District. Aaliyah Durham. I've known her for years. These are people that have poured into me voluntarily, and I don't think even realize how much they've affected my thinking. Navigating spaces in Pittsburgh sometimes can be troubling and troublesome and problematic, and they've helped me to frame thoughts and even shared perspectives that I've appreciated. So yeah, I'm sure there's probably more people, but.
Yeah. I'm afraid to name names because I'll forget somebody really important. But yeah, all throughout my life. I mean, I think my mom, if you can claim a mother as a
definitely.
mentor.
My mom is my
she's
number one.
always been my number one.
Right.
For certain. And probably the reason why I do what I do, because she was always just very community minded and challenging systems and things like that.
Our moms should be friends.
Yeah. So she was my biggest inspiration. But I think at every stage of my life, I have been surrounded by very strong women and men who have been supportive and, really, it's just, even in nonprofit sector, this, is not what I went to college for, but I ended up here in this space. And, just being able to sit with folks and glean from their experiences and learn to navigate this, space has been tremendous. Or just been, I could pick up the phone and call any number of people and say, hey, I need to sit down, I need a one-on-one.
Right.
Really, there's just so many people around that have been very supportive.
Yeah, there's so much beauty in that.
It really is. Yeah.
And I'm grateful to know that there's networks where people can tap into. When I moved here to Pittsburgh, I had my next door neighbor, shout out to her. But I kind of came not really knowing what to expect, but it was people like the women in NCNWi who took me in and said, like, how can we help? What do you need? So knowing that there are networks of mentors just waiting to be mentors, it's just the knowledge of it, knowing that it's there is comforting in itself.
Yeah.
So, like, what do you have to say to people who want to be mentors? Like, what is your biggest sell? What is your piece of advice? Both?
I think if you could make a person realize the difference that they would make in a child's life, I think it's best to think about your own life, think about people who have inspired you and taught you and, gave you guidance and support and how it mattered for you. I think that's a good source of inspiration for why you should step up and give back. But also, what I always respect about people, so many good people are just busy. Everybody's just terribly busy these days. And a lot of times we'll have, people who really want to help, but know that they can't make that commitment. So I always appreciate when somebody says, I would love to help, but I can't do that right now. Because the commitment piece is tremendous. Like I said earlier, this is not for the faint of heart.
Right,
It's a big responsibility. It's, it's a labor of love. And so I think for somebody who's just willing, I don't think people should become intimidated by the hour a week, 1 year minimum. At the same time, you got to be willing to commit. Because, once you establish relationship, it's important in the beginning, and the message we're really trying to communicate is that you just have to be consistent. You can't just show up on a whim and be absent for 6 months and then think that you're going to start back up again. Right, because this is more than just a friendship. Exactly. And so it's putting time in being consistent, being a consistent presence in that kid's life, and just staying the course. That's really important. If you're somebody who doesn't give up and you see the good in people, this is a job for you. Yeah.
We need more people like that. Yeah, or more people willing to acknowledge that that's the job for them.
Yeah. I like also, we have several mentors who, a lot of times this is like a challenge for men because they're like, what am I doing? To think of.
It's also kind of a weird sense of intimacy.
Yes, exactly. Forming a relationship with a boy, teenage boy, and it's like, what are we gonna do? Like, I can't think of, how to entertain this kid, and what I like about a lot of our male mentors is they'll get the kid like signed up in a class, so swim class or what's that? Boxing kits, Thai.
Oh, and they go together?
Yeah.
Oh,
and they do
so
physical things together.
Exciting. I would have never thought to do that.
Yeah, one mentor just came and asked about, because we had an event at Ascend, rock climbing, and we had a mentor ask about, is this something we could do for, our weekly visits? Absolutely.
That's like a visible expression of the mutual benefits.
Yeah, because you have, so the kid's learning a skill.
Right.
Men love to teach and coach, so they're your, you know, teaching and coaching. And then you have that time that you're riding together to, you know, your destination where you talk, and
so
then
exciting.
you have things to talk about afterwards, or you debrief. And so it's, I like to encourage particularly men, but women as well, to think about things, you know, activities that they're already interested in, teaching a kid a skill, you know, and then you start to build your relationship around a space that's comfortable for you. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. What about you, Jose? How would you sell it, or what advice would you give?
I mean, Anna said, you know, I think everything, but I think, you know, the other thing too is when you look online, you look at social media posts and things like that, and anytime there's an issue involving youth come up, you know, people are quick to go online and start saying things about, you know, their character and why, you know, why they're behaving the way that they are, and, you know, it's always pointing fingers, and, you know, if you really want to be able to help be a part of the solution, right, because we can't, none of this work should be done in isolation, right?
Right.
And so if we're talking about, you know, thriving communities and people and, you know, growing young men and women into the next generation, that involves all hands on deck. You know, I remember, I mean, even just the other day, I was at work and I was there after hours, and, you know, I looked outside I was at the lobby and I looked outside work. I looked outside the front lobby, and I could see in the parking lot these kids were throwing snow at my car. And there were no other cars in the lot but mine.
Oh my gosh.
And they were throwing snow at the car, like, deliberately. And I was like, I walked outside and I was like, hey. I was also that guy, like, young, like, get out of my lawn, right? And they were like, sorry, mister. And they were like, you know, 13, 14, 15. And I thought about it, because I was like, hey. And the one kid, he just kept apologizing. And I said, you know, it's okay. I was like, please don't throw snow in my car. And I had to think about how I was going to approach him, because he was like, I'm sorry, I'm really, really sorry. I said, it's cool, man. I said, you know, just be mindful. I said, also, this is public property, so be mindful of where you are and at times. And he was like, all right. And he goes, well, can we still hang out in the lot? I said, yeah, you know, just don't throw snow in my car. But even that interaction, I recognized was an opportunity to even build some sort of trust versus, you know, just reprimand, right? And I was faced with one of those two options, and I chose the latter. And yet, you know, I think those are times when we have opportunities to build and to create relationship. And as I mentioned earlier at the start of the broadcast, I mean, that's where our responsibility comes in. Not just as mentors, but even just as people, as neighbors, as good stewards of our community.
Right.
So
I think that's some great closing thoughts, even as we come to a close, because it sounds like the more you mentor, the more you're in these spaces, the more you become conditioned to think of children as people, youth as people first, right? You begin to think of every moment as an opportunity to be that person for them, and it almost looks like the responsibility begins to expand beyond just your mentee, but into all children, into the larger community. And I'm sure that it works the same way for the mentees, right? Like, they begin to look at adults or people who are younger than them as possible avenues of trust.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't just stop with your relationship. I'm sure it filters over. But I'm really appreciative of this conversation. Thank you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. It's wonderful.
This was great. So thank you for everyone who called in. If you want more information about Amachi, the website is amachipgh.org, amachipgh.org. Okay, and if you want more information about NCNW, our information is on the screen. But we're looking for members, both men, female, male, female, gender non-binary, all people. And I think this would be a great opportunity for you to connect with other mentoring organizations such as Amachi. So join us both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're broken down and tired of living life on the merry-go-round, and you can't find a fighter, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out. Move mountains, we gon' walk it out and move.